share my favorite quote. Dr. Carl Allenby took this on last year. I'd rather be someplace I want to be rather than someplace I could have been. He was I don't remember his age, 50 something, 55. He was a auto mechanic and decided to become a doctor. It's like, if I can fix cars, I can fix people. He said, he's 10 years is going to pass anyway. I might as well take 10 years and learn how to be a doctor. But it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Welcome to another episode of the Limitless Life podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Smith, and if you have not done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast. And if you love this podcast, you want some more tips and tricks on how to improve yourself, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There are a ton of instructional videos there. You can find the links down below. However, before you go ahead and do that, I would love for you to stick around with this fella here, the guide to growth himself, Todd Squires.
Very cool. Hey, thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely, my dude. I'm very grateful that you took time out of your holidays or potential holidays, at least it's Boxing Day in Canada, so it is a holiday, out of your day to sit down and chat with me and shoot the shit and drop some knowledge bombs.
I'm looking forward to it. Let's get them rolling.
Absolutely, my dude. So the question that I like to start podcasts with as a book opening is, Todd, how do you impact the lives of your personal and professional fellowships, the people that you make space for?
How do I impact them? In a positive way. I say a positive way by being authentic to who I am. Being the I know we've had this conversation before, but just being the grandfather clock in the room, be the biggest one, and others will follow. So and make sure I'm doing that in a positive way. It can go the other way, but make a positive impact. Is my short and sweet answer.
I dig it. I dig it. How do you find how do you bring that positivity? How is it that you recognized that positivity that comes out of you that impacts others? And yeah, go with that. Actually, that's a good one.
I don't. Somebody had to tell me first. Uh, so I was, just that. I went through a lot of life of just running through life as me, and started getting some recognition. People were talking about, hey, you should. I go into the gym quite a bit, or I watch my nutrition quite a bit. People started saying, Todd, people are actually watching you. I'm like, well, what the hell are you talking about? People are watching me. They're like, hey, you should start coaching. I'm like, no, that's all right. I'm good. I don't need to do that. But take I guess the positive energy that I put out, or that surrounds me, my aura, and use it in a good way. Use it to guide others and just be the positive person. Don't always look for the negative in everything.
I like that, man. Something that I'm noticing with conversing with you and also seeing what you look like in Richmond, you have the physique of I'm gonna whoop your ass, but you have the tonality and the voice of calm demeanor.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really cool contrast.
I'm the big teddy bear.
Yeah.
I try staying. I not try. I stay in shape. And that's a value of mine. Stay healthy, stay clean. Um, the past 2 days of holidays has been a little rough, but still made it to the gym today. Still did fine.
Nice.
Yeah, I've never heard myself described, or never been described that way. Thank you. Appreciate that.
My pleasure, dude. It's a fun thing because in podcasts we get to have the opportunity to just converse or speak about things like just in a different line of sight. It's like, oh yeah, getting to know this fellow more. I'm like, damn, calm and whoops ass. It's good. So with well, you mentioned values, and I find that I've been paying a lot more attention to values or virtues, and uh, just creating my own set of principles where I'm really making sure that I'm behaving in alignment with that. And before we were chatting, we were talking about philosophy. We're talking about my death calendar over there, the
Yeah.
4 weeks one, and a bunch of other stuff like that. And yeah, the moment you said we could chat about something more like that, I would love to dive into your thoughts or your inspirations of values or virtues. What has worked for you? Have you always had that kind of process? You can kind of take it in whatever direction. You don't need to answer all those questions specifically.
Yeah, no problem. So values, yeah, I mean, I already said, but I value my health. Um, I said, I value my family, my friends, but health is, if you don't value your health, or you value yourself, what value are you to others? Um, I talk about the business. I'm starting to do setting up a program to coach some business people. A lot of businessmen, once they get to 50, 60 years old, or even prior to that, they stop thinking about the value of their health, and they start thinking about the value of their money bucket. They want to fill that bucket, and in trade give up their health. Which, what good is the business you're in? What good is the business you're trying to build if you're not taking care of yourself? If you build this business and die, what the fuck did you do it for? Just to give it away? I mean, to let your family or whoever run it. Yeah, I value the health. If I'm here, it's good for everybody.
Nice. Yeah, I really dig that. I uh a shift that I had that was really cool because I went from being athletic or at least competing in a variety. I wouldn't say I was an athlete, but I was athletic and I can go and compete and stuff. So I would I knew training, I knew nutrition, I knew hydration, I knew those aspects, and I knew the performance mindset. Like there's a performance, and it's like, oh, okay. So I know like perform at this point. And then when I started adopting more of the business side of things, when I started working for myself and pursuing that, I, for whatever or I really focused on that aspect, like what you just mentioned. And then I listened to a podcast with Bedros Keuilian, at least he mentioned it. I know that he said it, but an entrepreneur and an athlete shouldn't treat themselves differently. So the same things that lead to success in athleticism are the same things that lead to success in business. And having the same performance mindset stacked, that really like pushes the things. And then it not only are you growing as a person, but you're also growing a business. And I think that there is like they grow together. And
Yeah,
as individuals grow, then they become better leaders, become better parents, and then they have a lot more. Um, there's more confidence in competence, and that really gets people like pumped up and keeps that momentum going. And I totally love that you're helping fellas do that. Where if they're crushing their business, why not crush their life too?
dude, I love that. I'm writing that one down. um, and a lot of times you don't see that.
Mhm.
Maybe see it more in the younger generations, but a 50-year-old, I've watched other guys my age or even a little bit younger or a little bit older that they don't, they are all strictly worried about building that business and forget how to take care of themselves. But I'm with you, man. They got to grow together. You got to be. I've talked to enough guys that are, oh, I was an athlete in high school 30 years ago. I'm not in shape anymore. I'm more worried about making $1 million. What if they could stay in good shape, take care of their health, and what if that would have made them $2 million or whatever that number is? They don't know that because they're so focused on making this one thing. Um, yeah, it's interesting, but so many people fall off that wagon of
Mhm.
got to make money. But
Totally. Like it solves a lot of problems, and it's good to be resourceful and have resources, but at the sacrifice of the thing that if everything was taken away, what you have left is your physicality,
That's it.
right? So
Yeah.
like at any point in time, any bank can just shut everything down. Anything that's at least tech based, remove anything
Yes,
that's tech based. What is it that an individual has? And that's their physical being.
that's it.
And that's a Swiss Army knife in itself, man. I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I don't know what I was going to say, but it's, man, but, so value number one, health.
Mhm. Yes.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that one.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Like your, go back to your uh, life calendar back there. It's, at 50 years old, they say, what is it? 4,000 weeks is what is average life expectancy, so I'm pretty close to that halfway marker. I really start thinking about that, as those dots start clicking away. It's like, oh shit. All right. What am I going to do? What's next? What can I do? What do I get to do?
Mm. Ooh. How much depth, how often do you reflect on questions like that? Those are heavy, dude.
But, not often enough. It just, I have just, shouldn't say learned, but just started thinking about it, more than, reading some of the more I read, the more I think about it. What else can I do with this life? Or like I said, what else do I get to do with this thing? This body gets one of us, gets one chance. Who knows what it's teaching us for the next one, but um, we shall see.
Totally. That's cool. Something uh I found to be I really like those questions. Like when you ask those questions, and I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I felt that like I felt the depth of those questions. I was like, whew, maybe I'm gonna listen back to this, write those down, and just maybe journal my thoughts on that. But it is kind of neat, kind of thinking of it where it's interesting. One thing I found with having the calendar being more just it's in my face. Like I see it every day. It's literally in every podcast episode I've done.
Nice.
Maybe like one that hasn't, but I see it all the time. And I think of well, one thing that has popped out is how much slower or how much further the future feels than the past does.
Mm.
And something that literally yesterday, so it's Boxing Day today. Yesterday was Christmas. Called my mom and my stepdad, and we're just shooting the shit with them. They were telling us about what they're cooking and stuff like that. And then Kendra's like, "Yeah, it's crazy that a year ago we were actually hanging out with you guys." And my mom's like, "No, you weren't." It's like, "What?" Yeah, you were the year before. So we went down the year before to do a little road trip along the Gulf of Mexico. And then Kendra and I are looking at each other, and I'm like, when did 12 months turn into 24? And we actually were completely like, we were like completely, like, we have no idea what we did last Christmas. It wasn't until she looked through her camera and she's like, "Oh, I remember now." And it's like, holy shit, that was 2 years. It like for a bit, it felt like a year, like what a year would, I guess, normally feel like, but it was 24 months. So thinking about that space and thinking it's cut in half, I think we think about it being shorter than from now to what we want to accomplish or what we want to get to. It always seems like it's so much further away that way. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Um, what you just said made pinged something on my end. Something I read the other day. Uh, and we talk about life in years, but what if you thought about something what if you think about life in times instead of years? I had that same reaction when I read that. I'm like, huh, we like, my mom's will be 75 years old next year. How many more times, how many more Christmases, how many more 4th of Julys do we get to have with her? We get, how many, yeah, just that life and times.
That's cool. I'm writing that one down for sure. 3 years. What if you thought in times instead of years?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy. I think I also recall hearing the same thing. Who was it?
it makes
You know
you
what? I can't remember, but for today, that's Todd
yeah,
Squires' quote.
thanks, buddy. It's yeah, it makes you be more present. So you know, it makes you if you got you only got 10 left,
Mhm.
you want to be damn present for those 10. So you don't want to be sitting there on your phone, or really any Christmas or holiday or gathering. You don't get so many of them left.
Totally.
So use them wisely.
I shared this with a client of mine where I reverse engineered uh like if someone does something an hour a day, right? A way to get 30% ahead of their year is to do an hour per day, like just 365 days in a row, but just 1 hour. And the way that you would be ahead by 30%, 33% is because you're including those days in there. And if you took the weekends away where you wouldn't be doing anything, so you do your 1 hour per day during the week, but you take 2 days off. If you didn't, or yeah, if you didn't, then you would end up with 3 months. It was like just over 3 months, 3.5 months more work done.
Done. I
Yeah.
read something. Somebody else had one. If you do 18 minutes a day, it comes to whatever it is, like 100 hours in a year of just learning something. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to, focus on nutrition, or I'm going to whatever that, no, whatever you want to focus on. But I don't remember the stat was like if it's 100 hours, you'll damn near you'll be an authority in that spot if you
That's
yeah
right.
just focus on that. It's like you and your podcast. You do it 1 hour every day or whenever you're going to be you are the authority in the podcast world or whatever that is. So, cool.
Nice. I dig that. Thanks, man.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So what have you learned well with that reflection with when you're thinking in times instead of years and because it's most people think in years. So with that kind of pivot shift or yeah, that pivot of a point of view, what have you uh what have you learned about living? What have you learned about the experience of living? Or what's
Ooh,
your takeaway?
that's a good question. Just being present, put the phone down, learn to appreciate those around you and appreciate what you've done for yourself or what I've done for myself. Yeah, it just shows a little more appreciation for people, whether it's on the receiving end or the giving end. And
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that's true. I also yeah, I also heard somewhere where even if someone's phone is on a table
mm,
and but they're not looking at it, even if they're not looking at it, that still
still there.
frustrates people. It still
It-
makes them irritable. My
yep.
favorite, I will say that there's one exception, and it's a game, usually at a bar, but it'll go, each of the phones are stacked on top of each other. So if it rings or if it vibrates or something, nobody knows whose phone it is, and everyone gets the itch to
Oh
grab
man.
their phone and
Uh,
check. But then the person that checks buys the next round.
I like it. That's cool. Yeah, I
Uh,
like that. I do that do that with my kids when we have dinner tonight. Just put them on there and just see who it is. Whoever's got to, whoever picks up has to go do the dishes or whatever. I like that, Kyle.
That's not a bad idea, man. Actually, yeah, I think that's a much more like there's more utility in using it in that way than the context that I provided. At least that would teach like patience, focus, responsibility, self-control. My context barely did any of that. It was like,
Nice.
well, I guess, it still could.
Yeah,
It would probably slow down people's drinking, so they'd be
yeah.
less impulsive to get
Right.
it.
Or
That's
they don't
funny.
want to pay for it.
Yeah,
And I'm running it through my mind now. We need to do it and we go to a CrossFit gym every day or 4 or 5 times a week. I've seen people mid-workout pick up their phone. Like, could use that at the gym. All right, everybody's got to stack. Whoever picks their phone up first has to do 100 burpees or something.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be awesome. Oh my gosh, that's good. Where else was I thinking here? Mm, with what's been inspiring? Oh no. I had something else that I wanted to go. No. What's something else that's really assisted you in because when when I'm speaking with folks and we're talking about how many times you have left instead of years, uh, I think that there is a common presence that is practiced in a statement like that, where it's like you say it and then it's like, oof, okay, I'm right here. Like you remind yourself where you're at. So in case you like go too far into the future or too far behind in the past, it's like, no. Think of how many times instead of years. Oh, okay, I'm right here. I'm chatting. Um, how have you found presence to be important to you?
Um, be important. I guess it's how I found important. I guess it's important for me to be in this conversation. My brain could be still thinking about the workout that I just did, or the workout I've got to do tomorrow, or the work that I've got to do. So you think about, or if actually, I'll throw this one at you. So we just started playing this game with one of my mentors called Feeling. Um, and I've started with my kids at night when we go to dinner. Um, So I'll play the game with you, Kyle, if you're
Sure,
up for it. Sure.
of
All right.
course.
This will be good for your listeners too. So
Gonna put me on the spot. Might
uh,
cry. We'll see.
no. So
Okay, cool.
I'll go
Let's give her.
first. It's just called the feeling game. I can feel. I'll give like three of them. I can feel the socks on my feet.
Mm,
Um, I can feel the earbuds in my ears. Um, I can feel the watch on my wrist, and I can feel the tingling in my fingers.
mm.
When he taught me that game, Mike, it puts me right here, puts me in line with Kyle. It puts me in line with myself. So, all right, you go, Kyle. Let's see what you got for feelings.
I feel the newsy cap on my head. I feel the whiskers of my beard tickling. I feel a stretch in my hips because I'm cross-legged. I feel the comfort of the blanket that is below me. It is like plush. And I feel a calmness in my chest and in my belly.
Nice. I like that. Oh yeah. And
That's cool, man.
man, it puts you in it centers. And it puts you in a room.
Mm.
It's I have not adopted it yet, but I do some workshops for like CrossFit gyms or some other businesses, but use that as a key. That's my hot open. Let's start with some feels. It puts it puts you in the room. I guess if you didn't pay attention to yourself, but um, yeah, hopefully that answered your question, or at least give a a way to get other people to put themselves in the room, or
Yeah.
to get those around them. How it's easy to do. Sit at the kitchen table tonight with your family or whatever, your girlfriend or your wife, spouse. All right, man, let's play a game.
Yeah.
It's easy. It doesn't cost you anything but time.
Yeah. But the upside is good. The upside is definitely there. Like that's cool too, because how often are we not like feeling what we're experiencing? We're just because we're in the experience doesn't mean we're feeling the experience.
I like that. Yeah.
It's like, oh, so I think what the feeling game kind of brought me to on that one is like, okay, yeah, like that's calmness. That's I'm here. Like I feel the experience.
Still here.
I'm not
Yep.
just yeah, I'm still here with the experience. That's cool. I like
Yeah.
that. That's my takeaway from that.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. To
Nice.
feel free to use that for your next guest.
Yeah,
Put
exactly.
it brings them to them. It brings them to the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because it started as like a pre-recording ritual. It's like,
Yeah.
just I want to play the feeling game with you. And then they might have the same answer. It's like, oh shit, like what? You're gonna rip something out of me? Is this gonna hit my soul?
You
Shit.
could.
Yeah, it is possible.
Absolutely.
Oh
Yeah.
man, that's good. Yeah, I think this year has been a much presence has been one of my main kind of values. Actually, on the note of values, man,
Yeah.
we're making big loops on
Loop,
this
we're
one.
making loops, man.
But yeah, presence has been a
Prince.
huge one for me on this one, where I've gotten a lot more. Uh, I've been basically practicing experiencing life as a meditation, as a moving meditation. So I'm trying to like really bring myself as present as possible. So that feeling game, if I can already see how I utilize it in a sense where it's like maybe there's even if it's a minor stressor, why not nip the minor stressor in the butt, and then the stressor oftentimes is difficult to solve when we're in a state of stress. So if we get into that
Yeah.
feeling state, or that, yeah, that feeling being, I suppose, then we can actually think about, oh, I don't need to feel this stress. But yeah, presence has been a big one for me this year. And then same with Kendra as well. Both of us have just been like in today, and we've like set that as like an intention. And then sometimes it's been unintentional too. And it's been pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
I like that. I like the a good value to add to my list as well. It and didn't think about it until you just said it. So I try to be more present. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no
It's
worries. This
um,
podcast is
all right.
about living a limitless life, man. And I think
like it.
I think conquering, actually not conquering, but really exploring ideas in the self can create that limitless life. Because when we feel like we are present, then we feel that sense of limitless of our what we can do. And that like what you were yeah, what you were saying before, like what could you do from here? What is it are you able to achieve from here? These are all like thoughts that come from a place of presence, because in presence there's abundance. And if you have the abundance of ideas, then there's the limitless life, and there's no
Yeah.
limitations to what could be possible. And then I really think it's kind of cool, because then it's like, yeah, what kind of it's learning about the self, being good to the self, and then going after those things that you can possibly do outside of the self because of the stuff that you did inside.
Okay. Nice. So I've got a question for you if you're up for it.
For sure.
So, so have you gone? I'm sure you've gone through the Enlifted. Have you gone
Not
through the Enlifted
not
class?
yet, actually. Not
You
until
haven't? Okay.
March.
Okay. Nice. I know you're at the. Well, I actually met you in Richmond. I didn't know if you've gone through it or not, but you see your steps ahead of it. So I mean, you've already your. What did you? How long have you been practicing? I guess the podcast or the self help stuff,
Oh
or
man. Hmm. I think I was always drawn to it
okay.
because I think my mom was really big with visualizing, and then abundance. And those are things that I recognized that I latched onto early. So I was also really drawn to, even in my teens, like Tony Robbins style stuff. However, I wanted to pursue culinary arts. So I wanted to be a chef.
Ooh, nice.
And then I had my own personal experience with a coach, and that was where I was like, I could do this. And then that's what shifted the trajectory. But I can think of a couple points in time that really influenced it. And one would be, I started getting into listening to the School of Greatness podcast with Lewis Howes. That was the first podcast I listened to, and it was really early on in the year, or in the career. He's over 1,000 episodes now, I believe. I'm not 100%, but he's up there. He's up there with
School.
episodes.
What
But I
was it?
remember School of Greatness.
Okay, I was writing it down.
Nice. And so I believe that that was probably a catalyst point in my timeline, where it's like, okay, that point was when I started getting introduced with other people that were improving themselves and improving others. Because he had a variety of people. He had business people, athletes, musicians, actresses, actors, like everybody. So I was really drawn to that. And then what he was doing, I can say that this style is certainly inspired by him because he had it where um Erwin McMullen or McMullen, something like that. He talks about 7 frequencies of how we speak. Definitely check out him. I think you would love his stuff. Like
Okay.
super cool. And one of those things is the helper frequency or the person that wants to heal or the healer frequency. That's what it is. So Oprah would be considered one of the healer frequencies. If you look at any of her shows, School of Greatness, Lewis Howes, he was the helper frequency. So he's speaking like from the heart. Like he wants to speak from the heart and relational. It's not as like scripted out or as like I want to hit this point, this point, this point, or this point. So I could say that that podcast was a pivot point in both my uh probably planted the seed of how I conduct a podcast today. Um, and also a pivot point to understanding what I could potentially do and how I've seen other people impact people. Because I know that positively impacting people was definitely a driver or an intuitive pull looking back now. Uh, yeah, at that point. So then, yeah, just kind of blossom from that point. And then there's a couple other points that I can recognize where I was like, oh, that point and that point. Now you got me thinking about it. It's like, okay, now I'm reflecting and seeing. But I think that would probably be the one for sure. That would be
Nice.
really stands out. And then having a coach beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You did. I was just curious more on my end more than anything, as somebody that, at a 50-year-old, 48, 47 years of just living life, prior to going through some unlifted stuff and actually hiring a mentor or a coach or both and both, not or,
Mhm.
how much uh, clearer you start to think.
Mhm.
When you start to work on yourself, you start to clean up the old stories, which, going through some unlifted or when you do, clean up some of that old stuff, but you've obviously you've got a head start on this, which is
Cool.
cool. Start cleaning those out, and the ideas start to flow through. It's pretty interesting that what can come through if you're not don't have a bunch of shitty thoughts run around in your head.
Awesome. I totally agree. And I
Yeah.
appreciate your observation. Thank you very much. Actually, with that's kind of cool. Yeah. So with well, yeah, your self-improvement journey
Yeah.
and getting into the kind of work where you're molding the mind. You're molding I look at I think this one's a cool one where if you look at words and you're from the athletic realm, so I think you'll love it. But I look at words as the ethereal macronutrients to the mind.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking of what your intake is and what your input is and what your out like the input to the output ratio, it's like, oh, when I eat like this, I feel like this, and it could be either positive or negative. Oh, when I speak like this and I speak like this, and it could be either positive or negative. But we're both it's just feeding the inputs, right? So if we feed our mind quality macronutrients, i.e., like words that are helpful rather than harmful, then the mind is going to be a lot healthier.
Dude, I love that analogy. And not but and, the cleaner the words that you consume,
Mhm.
your body follows suit. I am uh, a visual person. That's me. Prior I was in fairly good shape prior to going through and lifting and working on myself. And as those stories got cleaned up, the words got cleaned up, the food got cleaned up. If the mind is clear, the body will follow.
Oof. Your mind is clear. Yep. That's
I,
awesome.
I can talk about nutrition all day long till I'm blue in the face. It, People try to go on these crash diets and other stuff, but they don't work on their other, just like you said, they don't work on their words that they're taking in. They're just going to bounce back to where they were anyway. You can go
Totally.
and you can do a crash diet. You can do the whatever 90-day fix, 75 hard. But if you don't change you, you're not going to change you.
Nice. How have you found how and I'm guessing, I'm assuming, you can correct me. Yeah, we'll go with that. So having such an abundant life before getting into the coaching, like where it's really shifting the perspective, what was that contrast like where it was beforehand and then the pivot into taking in the information and then uh recalibrating your thoughts, I suppose. Like that.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
um, I guess I can see just the habits that I have, the thoughts. There's a lot more. 33 years in the same career path. You start cleaning up the mind, and different thoughts start rolling in. Like start coaching. Hey, I can do this. I've lived it. I can do this. Um, or then, like I said, the nutrition part. The cleaner that I get my nutrition, the more that people are paying attention to it or ask me, "Hey, man, what are you having? What are you eating?" Um, Start to think, oh, yeah, if I'm telling them advice or not telling them advice or helping them along, I might as well get paid for it. And helping them in their own journey. When I hear something make my mess their message, or make my mess my message. So, yeah, it's been fun. It's uh, I know Mark England's been on your show. I had a chat with him the other day that when I started with and lifted or started on this self-help journey, I did it for myself. I wasn't necessarily trying to be a coach. Did it for me, just to be, as we started out the podcast. I just want to be a better human, be a better person, have positive impact instead of uh, hungover dad that wasn't always present.
Nice. That's good. I think that's a good shift. That's very good.
Yeah, yeah,
I think when we happen upon something where it's improving ourselves, we get the opportunity to bring it into ourselves because if we're trying to if we're learning something just to regurgitate rather than try to improve ourselves, then it's not gonna flow as well. And I think when you have the intention of I just want to be a better human being, and then you pursue something, you're actually like in it, you're like, yeah, I'm doing this because I feel awesome. I'm doing this
yeah,
next thing because I feel awesome. And then because of that like desire to improve, it becomes easier to be able to coach yourself. And once you're able to coach yourself, then the same kind of thoughts just don't stop in your mind. They come through your words and through what you write and stuff.
yeah. I just had that conversation earlier today with a mentor. I was talking about, you go through and lift it or go through self development to, you look at, like you just said, two ways. You look at it to learn, or do you look at it to regurgitate? Or you could almost go through and lifted. You can almost go through you could go through any mentoring or coaching session twice if you want to go down that path. You can do it once to learn, go through it again to teach it. Yeah,
Mm,
it's
yep. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like that. You know what's funny about that?
so,
I do that same kind of I have that mentality when it comes to like an online thing. So if it's a course, boom, 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 boom. But it makes sense to have the same application to when it's an actual like personable like coaching program because then you really get to reinforce it. It would be longer, but I think I like the way that you worded that. It connected a couple dots. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. That's really cool.
learn it twice, learn it with two different perspectives.
Yeah. Mm, that's very cool, man.
So I'm curious, how did you? I'll ask another question.
Sure.
um, as a, I won't. how can I word this? As you've not
Bluntfully.
been in the what blunt what'd you say?
Bluntfully.
Bluntly. All right,
Bluntly. You can go
I will.
bluntly.
So as being a person not who hasn't gone through and lifted yet, and you took the opportunity to go to Richmond to hang out with
Mhm,
a bunch of enlifted coaches.
mhm.
How was your experience on the out on that side of it rather than already going through enlifted?
Uh, Pretty cool because I think I got to see the uh people and the relationships between the people without the filter of the program.
Ooh,
So I think I I could view it more as an outsider rather than just something I was going to while within it already.
very cool. Uh,
So I was going into so that my thought process now reflecting on it after you asked this, my thought process now or reflecting on it is that I was I was the I was the only person there. I'm sure there was another person, but I was the only person that I knew that wasn't already in the quote unquote circle.
right. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
So it's like going into another pack of animals. I know I wasn't in my territory. I was in a different city and I was not a part of the program beforehand. However, the relationships that I built prior to and the characters and the characteristics of the individuals that I interacted with even before then. So it went, this is how it actually went. This is a really cool one. Wanted to start my podcast for 2 years, started it. Then I thought, who are people that I want to have on my podcast? And then eventually I was just listening to Ryan Sprague on Aubrey Marcus's podcast. Really liked his stuff, followed his stuff, connected with him eventually, asked him if he wanted to be on a podcast episode, recorded after the podcast. I was like, do you know of anyone now that you've experienced the podcast? Is there anyone that you would think would be an appropriate fit or a good fit for it? And then he connected me with Kimberly Kesting and then had her on the podcast. And then went with Mark. And then I asked the same thing. She's like, yeah, I'll go introduce you to Mark. So I talked with Mark. And then Mark was like, yeah, I got some people too. And then that's when I had Dennis,
Hmm,
uh, Dave, Dennis, Chase. I think those were the main ones
nice.
that I had. And then a couple months went by. And then, of course, I seen like the enlifted stuff that was popping up. And then I was sending out my good vibe messages. I believe I sent one to you as well before Richmond, but did my good vibe messages. And Kimberly was like, "Oh my gosh, I was just gonna message you. Do you want to go down to this Richmond thing?" And I was like, "That sounds pretty cool." And I'm like, "Oh, okay," because I knew basically everybody that was um on the speakers, like up on stage speaking, and the people that were
Yep.
hosting it. I had everyone on my podcast. So it also stacked as an opportunity to actually meet a bunch of people that were very integral or catalysts to my progression in the podcast. So I got to meet everyone in person, which happened a lot earlier than I anticipated it could. I got to meet a bunch of people in person and I got to see how they interact with the community as a whole. So I did not have the quote unquote indoctrination beforehand. I'm just using indoctrination as like onboarding. I haven't
Right.
had the
Yep.
onboarding beforehand, so I didn't have that filter of being in it. I had the filter of being outside of it, and I was integrating myself into it.
Yep. Very cool.
So that was so, but now that I know that I'm going to go into it, I believe I'm going to also see a really I think I'll be going into it with a deeper sense of intention of education and implementation, application, and also coaching and teaching from that point. Because I also seen like yourself and like so many of the other peeps that are in the crew, uh, just how they all interact with each other and intermingle. And it was also crazy. Like the first night that we all were at the pub,
Mhm.
that was probably it's crazy. Like that was probably the first time because at that point, like 4 days from now or 31st, 5 days from now, it'll be my 2 years without drinking alcohol.
Nice.
That was my first time being in a room with so many. They ran out. They actually sold out of the non-alcoholic beers.
Yeah, the athletic brew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that, and then also like uh a whole bunch of other aspects to it. Like even the people when I got there, everything just adjusted smoothly. It was like I watched a video today. It was about being unbothersome. So everyone that was there was, and this is how I, and this is I'm projecting this, so I'm reflecting on this projection because I see it in myself and I observe it in other people's where they were unbothered by things. So even when I went there, there was two Canadian Kyles staying in the same place. So everyone planned for 9, but we ended up having 12 in our Airbnb. So for some folks, it'd be like, oh my gosh, this is like, it's bothersome. But
Yeah.
everyone was unbothered by it. We just adjusted, we
Just
communicated, reorganized, and then implemented.
make it happen.
And I recognize the same thing with everyone else, even if there was a moment where everything was, if things were tight on time or anything like that, people were unbothered. And that to me is an indicator that their focus is going towards things that are actually of importance, or at least of importance to the same degree that I see it.
Yep.
So that was
The
what that's what I got from like the interaction of not being through it, but going to it. And then, yeah, it was pretty cool. So that was just how I
uh,
observed it. And
that's awesome.
everyone was stellar. Like it was
It,
ridiculous.
it was fun, and I have been in your, I've been in those shoes. Um, so last year I was working with Chase Tellison, that we mentioned. I went through his 12-week Primal Man pathway, and it just happened to fall upon like that ended. And last year's was in Austin, Texas, and I went as an outsider as well. I like to say outsider. Went as a guest.
Yeah, I guess.
I went as a guest.
Yes.
Oh, a guest.
Yeah.
And I, same thing, man. I showed up at like the Friday night was a get together at a pub, or actually it was an arcade. And dude, everybody made like, who are you? What level are you? I'm like, tell you, these people talking about levels. I don't know. I'm not in lifted, so um, and they didn't care. So it's pretty cool. And the community is talking about not getting feathers ruffled. There is very much a feathers laid down community that it's not the end of the world. So it's raining. It's raining up. Who cares?
Totally. Yeah, it's like some people have a umbrella, some people don't, but the ones
Yeah.
that don't can kind of look at it as something that's beautiful or something that's miserable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
Totally.
you talk about the running out of athletic brew or the non-alcoholic. I, that I see that more of a common theme also once you start getting the words, what you start ingesting and digesting. Uh, Alcohol is the same way. It's no longer a need. It's I've gone from drinking 5 or 6 days a week to ooh, I had half a glass of wine the other night, first time in who knows how long. It could have been a couple months. I don't pay attention to it like I used to. It's again, once the mind is clear, the body follows. It's it's interesting.
It is. I actually found because some folks will ask because I started as a challenge where it was shenanigans, and then I was like, I'm not drinking for 30 days. And then it was I'm not drinking for 100 days. And then when I got to the 100 point, it was on my bucket list to do a whole year. So I did a whole year. And then around that time, I was thinking, like, do I want to have a drink? Like, I was asking myself the question to kind of just like go with it. And then I thought about it, I was like, I don't really have, and I still don't feel it to this day, like a desire. There's no
Right.
desire for it, like
Yep.
where it ever was before. Like, I don't think to myself, oh, I need a beer. And I'm
Right.
much more like level-headed. I also switched up. I can definitely say that I more so switched up drinking with cannabis use for like outings and stuff like that. So I'll go and get a non-alcoholic beer and I'll put some of the THC drops into my beer.
Nice.
It's freaking
Uh,
solid, man.
Call it good.
Yeah, I still hang out with peeps that are just getting wasty pants and then it's fun. I think it's hilarious. It's so
It is.
good.
Yep. It is. It's. I agree. You can watch them do, and I just had to say that, I was one of those people who do dumb shit, or you say stuff that next day it's like, oh man, did I really mean to say that? But it came from
Totally.
somewhere.
100%. One of the main outings that we had, it was a staff one, and it was also my first. That was a night where I was actually like, oh my gosh, it was more of a tester night. I wanted to test my resolve, and because that was like highly probable where I would be the first one wasty pants. I would already be wasty pants before I even got to the bar. Like that's legit. And then there would be all the shenanigans afterwards. But I was totally good. No desire, no temptation, and then there was no pressure from anyone as well. There was maybe like one time, but after three no's, he's usually pretty good at like chillaxing. Uh, but it was interesting watching, observing instead of instead of what I thought of before, because we were at a pub that I would go to often enough, and it's funny because I recall how rowdy it was and how loud the music was and how crazy the evenings were. But then seeing it from an alternate perspective, I realized that it wasn't that intense of an experience. I just perceived it as it was intense. But then when I see it from this perspective, I'm like, wow, it's actually so much calmer than I thought. It
Nice.
was interesting. It's pretty cool. So now
It
I just
is,
go
yeah.
out and about and just hang out. It's fun.
Yeah. It's, yeah, perspective. Just that. It's, yeah, it's cool to have different. And again, once you start to free the mind up a little bit, you can have different perspectives and you can see different points of views instead of like, I got to be this, I got to do this, I got to do that. It's, eh, or taking somebody else's perspective and actually observing it or looking at it happens when you start to clear out the mind and clear out the body. So it's fun. It's cool. It's been a learning experience for sure.
Man, that's what life's all about, is just learning on learning.
It is.
It's yeah, it's definitely like I think when we stop learning is when we just have decided that we're done. It's just
Yep.
retiring.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy, man. That's cool. Well, my friend, we're at the top of the hour, and I
All right.
have two questions that I want to share with you. But before that, I have a preemptive one. Is there anything that has to be said that hasn't been said yet?
I'll share my favorite quote. Dr. Carl Allenby took this on last year. I'd rather be someplace I want to be rather than someplace I could have been. He was I don't remember his age, 50 something, 55. He was a auto mechanic and decided to become a doctor. It's like, if I can fix cars, I can fix people. He said, he's 10 years is going to pass anyway. I might as well take 10 years and learn how to be a doctor. But it's pretty cool story. Yeah, it's neat.
I like
Other than
that,
that,
man.
yeah,
Go ahead,
it's
sorry.
good. Nope, you're good.
Cool. Yeah, that was an awesome share. Damn, that was good. Now we're gonna get into the tough ones.
All right.
Uh, so it's at the end of your days. That calendar is full.
All right.
So it's the end of your days. You're on your deathbed. You're surrounded by the people that you love. What piece of advice do you want to pass on before you kick the bucket?
Ooh, pay attention to the calendar. um, do How much time do you have? How much time do you get? So we don't know. None of us know how much time we get. Um, go for whatever you're going after, um, and don't be afraid. Don't let fear hold you back. You know, a year ago I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you, Kyle. I would be on a blank screen. I wouldn't. You would never see me. You would never found me. So do something that if you've got a drive, go do it.
That's good. That is fantastic. The final question. The best version of you is sitting next to you right now. What piece of advice does he have for this season of your life?
Hmm. Remember to become a magnet to attract. Don't be uh, yeah, just that. Being attractant, be a magnet rather than a pusher. You're going to attract abundance. You're going to attract new acquaintances, new friends. Um, the more you the more you push towards people, the sometimes the farther away they get. So
Mm,
be a magnet.
that is awesome. That is fantastic. Actually, thank you very much for that share. That's great. And that's what I've got for you in today's episode. Where can people find you, Todd?
On the gram, it's Todd_Squires.
Perfect. Sweet. Well, folks, if you loved today's episode, which how could you not with this fella? Please do me a favor, take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram stories, and tag me with my handle at DabberDudeKyle, along with at Todd_Squires. That is one of the ways that we grow. And until next time, keep up the kindness, and I hope your day treats you as good as you look.